Kirby.
Hi!
He's been a consistent little fellow. I mean, he's aged pretty well for 30 years old. While many of Nintendo's properties have taken massive leaps into new territory, whether it be 3D, first person, or death, Kirby has always stayed pretty much the same. Sure, he splits into 4 copies here, pilots a mech there, slays an eldritch horror every Tuesday, but outside of spin-offs which are meant to be different, the Kirby franchise hasn't stepped outside of its comfort zone much, and to its credit, Kirby's got a stellar formula for his games. However, with Kirby's 30th year, he finally steps into a new world and receives his first 3D game. I'm sorry, second 3D. First mainline 3D game, Kirby and the Forgotten Land. This review will contain no major spoilers for Kirby and the Forgotten Land. For as long as he's been around, Kirby has been a 2D platforming series. However, with an interview with Shinya Kumazaki, the general director of the Kirby series, talking about the next phase of Kirby after the release of Star Allies and Fighters 2, fans were very hopeful for a 3D Kirby game. People have been asking for a 3D Kirby title even before screenshots of the cancelled GameCube entry all the way back in 2005, and HAL Laboratory themselves have dabbled with the idea of 3D Kirby with Kirby Blowout Blast, leaving a glimmer of hope for what's to come. And on September 23rd, 2021, the pleas of fans across the world had been answered when we saw Kirby wash up on shore and finally, after 30 years, turn around a corner. One day, Kirby takes a ride on his warp star when suddenly, the end of the world. A usual occurrence. The portal in the sky is sucking everything in, including Bandana Waddle Dee, who looks like he's really having none of this. Kirby's really not taking the ride well though, since his motion sickness apparently fucked up every non-existent bone in his body. Getting sucked into a new dimension, Kirby learns that he can move in a new dimension as he runs across the new land. Along the way, Kirby runs into Elfilin, a cute little creature that the internet immediately wanted to set on fire. He was trying to help the Waddle Dees, but was captured along the way. Kirby, being Kirby, immediately befriends Elfilin, and the two new friends journey onward. Kirby and the Forgotten Land blends Kirby's familiar running, floating, inhale, and copy abilities with a new 3D environment. Kirby feels incredibly natural in 3D, playing almost exactly like he does in past titles, with a few minor changes. Along with the fact that Kirby can't hover forever like in Crystal Shards, Kirby also has a limit as to how high he can hover. Forgotten Land's gameplay was designed meticulously and feels amazing to play. Kirby moves as smooth as butter, and his copy abilities feel great as well. While copy abilities were bound to have restricted movesets due to previous entries utilizing directional inputs, control options now take up that spot. However, with certain moves now allowing Kirby to move while using them, Kirby still feels mobile and satisfying even when returning to 1 or 2 move copy abilities. Slashing at enemies with sword, whirling around with tornado, bashing enemies with hammer, hurling bombs, breathing fire. It's all what Kirby has done before, but it all feels a lot more impactful and a lot more destructive in a 3D environment. Needle makes its return as well, albeit heavily altered from its previous incarnations. Instead of just having spikes protrude from Kirby's hat, you now play Katamari Damashi with your enemies as a ball of pure death. Along with Kirby's returning abilities are 2 new ones. Drill allows Kirby to bury through the ground and attack enemies from below or with fissures, and Ranger. Kirby has a gun. This is a surprisingly common occurrence. While the total number of copy abilities is rather low, with 12 total including sleep, which is, well, sleep, compared to the usual amount in modern titles, which is in the high 20s, Kirby and the Forgotten Land introduces Copyability Evolutions. If Kirby has the corresponding blueprint, he can upgrade a copy ability to its next stage using rare stones and star coins. Evolved copy abilities gain power, speed, range, or all of the above, as well as new attributes. There's a lot of fun new copy abilities. Dragonfire lets Kirby soar through the air in a dragon-shaped flame. Clutter Needle is a cute reference to Kirby 64 The Crystal Shards. Storm Tornado summons lightning and hurls enemies. Meta Knight Sword makes Kirby feel incredibly badass with hack and slash style moves. And Noble Ranger. Kirby has 2 guns. Fear for your life. Forgotten Land definitely went with the quality over quantity approach with copy abilities, and although Kirby is already enjoyable even with a smaller copy ability pool, it's a shame some of these series staples like Beam, Fighter, and Parasol missed out on this 3D adventure. There was so much thought and care put into Forgotten Land in order to make Kirby's first true 3D adventure feel as good as possible, and Kirby's controls are a large part of that. A developer interview revealed that adjustments were made so that if Kirby is mid-air and looks like he's close enough to the ground, it'll register as another jump instead of a hover. Projectile attacks were given slight auto-aim, but not too much where every attack connects without effort, and any projectile that looks like it would connect on screen will register as if it did, even if it slightly misses. Kirby's mobility also feels great in this game, and the combat of Forgotten Land is a consistent high point. Kirby has had access to a dodge move since Triple Deluxe, but it's in Forgotten Land that dodging feels best. Not only does Kirby feel very agile when dodging, if a dodge is timed perfectly, time will slow down similar to a perfect dodge in Breath of the Wild, where Kirby can perform counterattacks with each ability that deal more damage. One movement option and one mechanic in Forgotten Land makes combat infinitely more satisfying, and synergizes incredibly well with Kirby's boss fights that tend to focus on memorizing attack patterns and counterattacking with the strongest hits you've got. The main gimmick of Kirby in the Forgotten Land involves Kirby committing body horror, a far cry from the power of friendship. Mouthful mode has Kirby stretch himself across and around different foreign objects and control them. While the concept is, I'll be honest, incredibly dumb, I'm completely fine with dumb because it's fun. Stretching over a cone allows Kirby to waddle around and spike downward to break through cracked ground, no idea how a traffic cone can break concrete. Stretching over a light bulb lets Kirby become the light of everyone's life. Stretching over a car lets Kirby finally drive through means I'd rather not think about, so on, so on. By far my favorite mouthful mode is the vending mouth, where Kirby wraps himself around a vending machine and shoots soda cans. Not only does he look absolutely ridiculous, the idea of running around rapid firing and needing ammo goes against everything I've seen Kirby as, and I love it. Mouthful mode is similar to Super Mario Odyssey's captures, in which they're mainly used to solve puzzles and that they're used in short intervals instead of half a level. There's a reasonable balance between Mouthful mode sections and Kirby gameplay, and transitioning between Mouthful mode and Kirby is snappy, allowing you to get right back into the action. As soon as you step into the new world, it's clear that this game is absolutely gorgeous. When thinking of exploring a post-apocalyptic world, Kirby was definitely not the first to come to mind, but the bright and colorful art style complements the world really well. Instead of focusing on the dystopian implications of an abandoned civilization, Kirby in the Forgotten Land focuses on the wonder and beauty of a city overtaken by nature as you explore these locales with gorgeous sights and pleasant atmosphere. Kirby games are no stranger to scarier elements, you know, with the whole bleeding eyeball thing. Twice. But even in some of the more solemn locations, the game doesn't go overboard with the eeriness, instead leaving it to the background. Each world still follows the traditional theming with a grass world, a water world, a snow world, and so on, but each level is still distinct and memorable and focuses on different aspects of the world you're exploring. Natural Plains features mountainous terrain and caves before arriving at a shopping mall. Everbay Coast shows both the more natural beaches and the industrial waterworks, and Winter Horns has Kirby go through the snowy remnants of towns and subway stations. Shoutouts to Wondaria Remains, an abandoned theme park, where each level is a different attraction with the fairgrounds, a race course, a haunted house, and a parade. There's even a mouthful mode roller coaster. The amount of variety in scenery and level gimmicks is very welcome, yet it doesn't alienate the levels from the theme of the world. Although each level still follows the regular point A from point B style, great attention has been put into making the levels of Forgotten Land feel like real places rather than levels in a video game. To make an example, while the level structure is closer to the style of Super Mario 3D World, being somewhat linear and blending platforming with puzzles, the level design is closer to, again, Super Mario Odyssey, where it actually feels like a place that had been lived in at one point. Kirby has regular run-ins with the Beast Pack, from the low-level mooks like a Woofy, who, try as hard as they might, will never look intimidating, to the higher-ups, who serve as boss fights. Along with getting in Kirby's way, the Beast Pack have kidnapped many of the Waddle Dees who fell into the world, and it's up to Kirby to save them all. The Waddle Dees are similar to past collectibles in the Kirby series like the Sunstones, Code Cubes, etc., but this time, they're adorable little creatures who cry for help when you're near them. God, this game is so cute. There's always 3 at the end of each level, but any other Waddle Dees are either hidden or locked behind objectives or puzzles. These objectives range from making flowers bloom, to eating up donuts, to leading lost ducklings to their mother, adorable by the way, to defeating bosses with no damage. Those ones are hard as balls, and I would ask if it was worth it, but it's a Waddle Dee. It's always worth it. Just look at their smile! Or, well, lack of smile. Still cute though. The Waddle Dees are, in my opinion, the best collectible that the series has had to offer. Not only are they incredibly adorable, the objectives are not super obscure or hidden. When you complete one of the objectives for Waddle Dees, the game lets you know with a little notice on the bottom right corner, and if you miss one of them, the game reveals the criteria needed to unlock said Waddle Dee after completing a level, but doesn't tell you explicitly where it is. This promotes replaying levels without it being frustrating to revisit them and looking around to no avail. Along with the regular levels, Forgotten Land also has challenge stages called Treasure Roads, which are unlocked by beating the story levels or finding them hidden in the map. These challenge stages test your mastery over Kirby's copy abilities and mouthful modes, and reward you with a rare stone at the end of each one. Some of these are simple combat trials, some are a platforming race against the clock, the base form Kirby Treasure Road is a straight up reference to Blow Up Blast, and the Stairmouth Treasure Road gave me a fucking migraine. I played this for a solid hour, rushing against the clock to try and beat the target time, only to learn that the target time wasn't necessary for 100% completion. Well, fuck. Kirby and the Forgotten Land made me hate stairs. I'm taking the elevator from now on. The side collectible in Forgotten Land are figurines. While the Waddle Dees are closer to sunstones and code cubes, the figurines are closer to keychains and stickers. The rarer figures include flavor text along with it, which is reminiscent of the pause screen descriptions that are no longer present. While this change is a lot healthier for the game's immersion, as previously you would have to pause as soon as you entered a boss fight to read the pause description, I kinda can't help but miss those pause screen tidbits. However, Kirby peering over a table when viewing close-ups of the figures more than makes up for it. From food, to scenery, to enemies, there's figures for just about everything. And I mean everything. What I'm more interested in though is the loaf of French bread figure. This implies that the French exist in the Kirby universe. Any Kirby lore enthusiasts out there, do explain to me how the French fit into the Kirby canon. Though if the action of the new world is too much, then Waddle Dee Town, Forgotten Land's hub world, is the perfect place to be. At first, Waddle Dee Town is nothing but wreckage, but as you save Waddle Dees, they begin to rebuild the town. Visit the weapon shop for ability upgrades, the gacha machine alley for a gambling addiction, and the item shop for some items that help make the game easier, which are kind of unnecessary unless you're at the Colosseum, the boss rush in Forgotten Land in line with the arena. Kirby's house gets built in Waddle Dee Town, love the little dome home, and especially love being able to sleep in it with some of the most adorable animations ever. My favorite place though is the Waddle Dee Cafe that sells the Kirby burgers from the Kirby Cafe and car Kirby cakes. It's adorable, and the Kirby Cafe actually has the car Kirby cakes now, oh my god! Waddle Dee Town also has 3 sub-games available for play. Flash Fishing has Kirby fish up increasingly large blipper through QuickTime button events, oh lord he comin'. Tilt and Roll Kirby is a cute reference to Kirby Tilt and Tumble, where you roll a little Kirby marble using gyro controls. It is so goddamn frustrating on the hardest difficulty. Finally, Waddle Dee Cafe Help Wanted has Kirby work at the Waddle Dee Cafe. Not only does Kirby own a home, he got a job working food service. My boy's growing up so fast, I'm so proud of him. What I've learned from this subgame is that Waddle Dees are surprisingly impatient. Seriously, I save your life from the beast pack and you give me like, what, 5 seconds to get your food? What the hell? I thought Waddle Dee Town was supposed to be relaxing. Kirby's first true 3D adventure shaped up to be one of his greatest yet. There's a number of little details present, like how the birds in the forest before the new world sing the game's theme, or how the language the game is written in can actually be translated into letters of the Latin alphabet. Not only that, but each and every part of the game is incredibly polished and looks great even when compared to non-Switch titles. Something I don't often see pointed out is how the camera in Forgotten Land didn't act up whatsoever. It steadily follows behind Kirby, and while it shifts at times to display the world or scenery, I never have to fight against the camera. Kirby in the Forgotten Land actually has a difficulty setting now, which is new for the Kirby franchise. Wild mode halves Kirby's health and pits him against harder enemies, but grants him more star coins compared to Spring Breeze mode, love the name by the way, where Kirby's health bar looks really big. It's like they put the health bar in an image editing software and just... that. Really though, Wild mode and Spring Breeze mode are like easy mode and easier mode. Kirby games are already notorious for being easy, and while that doesn't impede my enjoyment of the games in the slightest, a genuine hard mode along the lines of the extra game in Kirby's Dream Land would make it more challenging and more fun for those who wish for said challenge. The game also supports co-op play, where the second player gets to play as Bandana Waddle Dee. While I love Bandana Waddle Dee to bits and the co-op play is a blast, this definitely felt like an afterthought. Kirby gets to do all the cool mouthful mode stuff, while Bandana Waddle Dee just sits there looking cute and throws spears. It was a real missed opportunity that Player 2 didn't have the option of being Bandana Waddle Dee or a Player 2 Kirby along the likes of Return to Dreamland, especially with how mouthful modes are Kirby exclusive, along with copy abilities because, again, no mouth. The 3D perspective makes Forgotten Land's boss fights feel like the most cinematic fights that the Kirby series has seen. The Beast Pack fights are all great, but no matter how much I think her design is really weird in a Kirby game, Claraline's boss fight is one of my favorites, and it gives me the same vibes as the director bosses in A Hat in Time. Special shoutouts, however, to the King Dedede and Meta Knight boss fights. King Dedede's moves were faithfully brought over into a 3D environment, and the fight is pretty straightforward until Phase 2 starts, and then he starts swinging around a giant fucking pillar like it's nothing. I still can't get behind that redesign though. He looks like a Club Penguin character. The Meta Knight battle is a definite highlight of Forgotten Land. Not only does Meta Knight fight Kirby without any form of possession or gimmick, just a duel between two rivals, he does not hold back. Meta Knight dodges your attacks with incredible speed and counterattacks with sword beams, geokinesis, and his now iconic upper caliber attack. Clashing swords with Meta Knight feels incredibly badass, and if you win, you can steal Galaxia to use Meta Knight's sword. Then he comes back with his original sword from Kirby's Adventure. Oh my god! There is no way that one of, if not the best Meta Knight fight in the series is optional. It goes without saying that Kirby and the Forgotten Land soundtrack is incredible. An incredible soundtrack is a series staple at this point. Words simply cannot describe how amazing this game's soundtrack is. Only listening to it yourself would do it justice. There are just too many tracks I love to play them all here, but I've been playing a lot of the tracks in the background of this video. You can find those in the description. Two tracks I want to give special mention to, however, are the Meta Knight and King Dedede boss themes. Jazz rock fits Meta Knight really well, and the heavy use of the My Friend and the Setting Sunlight motif in his theme, coupled with just how intense and heroic it feels, truly backs up an incredible fight with the surviving Guardian. However, in my opinion, absolutely nothing that doesn't veer into spoilery final boss territory can match the sheer amazement I felt from Roar of Dedede. The Star Allies version of King Dedede's theme makes a return, this time backed up by anvil strikes, Dedede's primal roars, and an incredibly heavy and powerful arrangement of an iconic track that sends chills down my spine. Not only did Forgotten Land give us some of the best Meta Knight and DDD fights, it also gave us some of the best themes for said characters, along with many other amazing tracks. I give Kirby and the Forgotten Land a very well-deserved 9.5 out of 10. Kirby has been incredibly consistent in delivering fantastic experiences, and while there have been some low points, not a single Kirby game has been bad at all, and Forgotten Land continues the trend of incredible games. Forgotten Land's gameplay, music, and visuals especially were a consistent high point, and while it is quite easy, it doesn't take away from what the game has to offer. The new post-apocalyptic locales Kirby explores are a breath of fresh air, similar to how Planet Robobot completely shook up Kirby's familiar destinations. However, I did dock half a point for minor issues that I have with the game. While pause screen flavor text being moved to figurines is a good change, this also means that the moves list is missing as well. Even with copy abilities now only having 1 or 2 moves, the game doesn't tell you about certain options you have with abilities, like how the upward slash combo with sword, now moved to the input for the slide kick, was a complete mystery to me up until I read about it online, or how the ice storm attack for the ice ability requires a double B press, or how you can lock into a direction when using fire or ice. Kirby games are often great with teaching players without words, but I would be fine with the game telling me about these, seeing as it is the first time Kirby has used copy abilities in a 3D environment. Speaking of movesets, a lot of the moves for copy abilities could have been implemented through means that the game already uses. The only times the slide kick is replaced with a copy ability move are with sword and player 2 bandana Waddle Dee's spear. Why not have Hammer's hammer swing, or Cutter's cutter dash tied to the input? Why not have Ice's ice sprinkle attack as a mid-air attack the same way the sword spin was implemented? Again, it is Kirby's first time using copy abilities in 3D, but I feel that a bit more could have been done with them. Enemies sometimes render at a reduced frame rate from afar, likely to keep the game running smoothly. While it's not a deal breaker, it is quite noticeable in certain situations. Lastly, the game makes you mash the control stick a lot, and I mean a lot. For a console infamous for its drifting controllers, I'd rather not absolutely pulverize my control sticks. However, these flaws only knocked off a half point from my personal score, and it was really difficult to find any glaring issues with the game at all. Kirby and the Forgotten Land is a step in the right direction for the Kirby franchise, and I'd consider it to be one of the best Kirby games to have been made. While my favorite Kirby game and favorite game of all time will always be Kirby's Epic Yarn, Forgotten Land joins the ranks of Planet Robobot, Return to Dreamland, and Superstar Ultra as one of the greatest adventures Kirby has gone on. Now, you may think I'm really biased considering I'm a massive Kirby fan, and I am, but I really do recommend Kirby and the Forgotten Land. It's no wonder that HAL Laboratory waited 30 years to finally put out a 3D Kirby. It's clear that the idea has been around for a long while, but Forgotten Land is incredibly polished, incredibly fun, and was absolutely worth the wait. But if anything I said in the past 23 minutes did not resonate with you whatsoever, there's a hi button. So Kirby and the Forgotten Land is a perfect game without any flaw whatsoever, and I will not be taking any criticism on that.